Chapter 45. All is lost. Lincoln woke up to the faint sounds of banging on the walls. Verona and Lincoln had fallen asleep on a sir's bed. Lincoln quietly got up to investigate the noises. Not wanting to disturb his still sleeping sister, Lincoln slowly and carefully slipped out of bed and crept to the door of the bedroom, opening it to the hallway. He walked down the hall, carefully stepping around Jack, who was sleeping on the floor at the end of the hallway, just in the opening to the living room. Lincoln heard the sounds getting louder as he went. In the living room, Adam was sleeping on the floor, while Sir and Lake were sleeping together, still sitting in the old man's armchair. Lincoln slowly walked over to where the noises seemed to be coming from. Finally, he had come to a window at the far end of the room. It had been boarded up, but it looked like one of the boards had come loose and rattled in the wind. Lincoln then noticed the window behind the boards had fallen partially open. Lincoln saw the unlocked latch. Lincoln realized that it was a security concern. He looked around the room and saw everyone was still asleep. So Lincoln figured he would try and secure the latch himself. But he was very small, and the latch was a couple of feet above his reach. Lincoln scanned the room for something he could use to step on. Finding nothing in the living room, Lincoln remembered the old wooden chairs around the small kitchen table. With all his might, he carried the heavy antique over to the window, put it down, and started to climb. He slowly inched closer to the window, pushing it up and trying to reach the latch. He was stretching as high as he could, until he finally grabbed hold of the latch and lifted the window into place. Then, standing on his tiptoes and with all his effort, he started turning it into place using the tips of his fingers. Just then, the window flew open, and two ghouls came crashing into the house, grabbing for the young boy. Lincoln was knocked backwards off the chair, but before he hit the ground, he was caught by Adam, who had heard Lincoln's movements and had just woken up in the nick of time. Adam quickly set Lincoln down, pushed the Jinn back into the night, slammed the window shut, and secured the latch that he could easily reach. The house was once again Jinn-free, but Adam felt it wouldn't be for long. Even though it was only 5 a.m., the commotion had woken up the rest of the house's inhabitants. Verona woke up to find Lincoln was not next to her. Her heart raced as she came running out of the room to see Jack, Adam, and Lake standing in the living room, surrounding Lincoln, checking him out. Verona screamed, "Are you all right?" Lincoln looked at her with tears in his eyes, attempting to nod. "What happened?" Verona demanded. Adam warned, "We are not safe here. The Jinn are coming in." Sir was the only one still sitting. He said in a weak voice, "Where's the spark?" The group looked at the old man, and Jack hurried to collect it from his bag, handing it to the keeper of the flame. Then Sir looked at Lake and said, "I feel much better, thank you." Next, he looked at his old friend Verona. "We need to restart this fire now." Adam grabbed a couple of the newspapers from the old man's table and crumpled them up. Jack pitched in by placing 2 new logs in the fireplace. As Sir was busying himself inspecting the canister and working with his fireplace, he spoke. "You all have been so brave. You all have been forced to endure this dangerous journey because of my failures. I am sorry for that, but you all have proven to be up to the challenge." He then looked at the group. slowly stood up and steadied himself. I will light this flame. When I do, the flame of life will restore the earth and how it should be without Jinn. Asur paused, then continued. The power of the sun, the majesty of the earth, and the magic of the moon should force the Jinn back to the underworld as promised, and when that happens, we can all relax and get to know each other better. The children were looking at his pained and sensitive eyes, hoping this nightmare would all be over soon. Asur turned to the fireplace. A look of concentration and determination came over his face, as if he knew he only had one shot at this. Asur slowly twisted the cap off the cylinder. The cap came off, and Asur pulled out a knotty tree branch that magically had a small blue flame burning at the end of it. This was no ordinary fire. By some ancient magic, the branch was not burnt, and the flame was not smoking. Asur held it out in front of him and bent down to ignite the newspapers as all the children tensely stood watching. Crack! The sound of shattering glass filled the room. They all turned around to see that the Jinn broke through the living room window. At the same time, they infiltrated the window in Asur's bedroom. The Jinn used the full force of their abilities, creating a powerful wind tunnel that ripped from one open window through the home to the other open window. For a second, Asur was blinded by the strong winds, not even able to bend the few more inches needed to light the newspapers. Then, as suddenly as the winds came, they left. In its wake, there was total destruction. The furniture in the living room was scattered. The great big books from the bookcase were lying on the floor, and Lincoln had fallen down. Asur pried his eyes open only to see nothing. The spark was dark. The last of the flame of life had been extinguished. The room went dark, as did Asur's hope of defeating the Jinn. But there was no time to wallow in it. The Jinn had breached the house, and they were coming in. Asur was in shock and could not believe what had just happened. So Lake grabbed his hand and led him and Lincoln to the kitchen, where the two small children knocked over his kitchen table to use as a shield. Lake then handed Asur a frying pan for a weapon, partially snapping Asur back to reality. Asur told the children to get behind the table. Jack vanished, and Verona and Adam sprang into action. Verona sat on the floor in the middle of the house and closed her eyes. When she did, many of the Jinn who had already entered the house turned around and pushed their way back out the same way they came in. Adam threw the rest out. He shut one of the windows and used the hammer and nails sitting next to it to board it back up again. The other window appeared to shut on its own, but Jack flickered into sight as he was hammering another board on it, securing it for now. Although the group had overcome the breach, they all knew it was only a temporary fix. They had run out of boards and nails, and they knew now that the flame had gone out. The Jinn would not stop. The children looked to the old keeper for guidance, but he had none to give, for he was all out of solutions. Asur looked beaten. He mumbled to himself, almost inaudibly, "All is lost."